All right, guys. I'm back. Sorry, had the important phone call, and quite frankly, had to do some washing. Laundry day. It's laundry day. I sent Jill the invitation to the call. Hmm. Let me see if I can actually. Give me a second. All right, I'm sending the link. So I'm just waiting around, and boy, is my shit slow. All right. All right, let's just turn that off. Are you here?
Hey,
Are you here? Good.
yes, I'm
All
back.
right. All right. Yeah. I had
Part
to
two.
take a phone call from a very important person in my life.
Okay, okay, that's
All right.
fine.
So he promised you six ish. So, all right. So let's actually address a couple of things. First off, I want to thank you for coming back and having this conversation with me. Bad faith actor or not, no one cannot say that you don't have any courage.
Oh yeah, I'm. Well, thanks for having me back. Um, I don't know if I'm would be considered courageous, but
Oh wow. Hey. Do me a favor.
yeah.
Whatever you eating, it sounds like it tastes good.
No, these are just some hash browns.
Man, how do you cook your hash browns?
Um, I don't know.
I'm sorry. Did you cook them or is it just like you bought them
Um, in the oven, I guess.
in the oven? So is it the? Do you actually use the? How do I put it?
Conventional oven.
No. So do you actually use like the patties, the actual shredded potatoes? Like how do you cook your hash browns?
Well, these are pre-made, but my wife has made hash browns from potatoes,
Uh,
actual potato.
See, I tell you how I cook my hash browns. So I get shredded hash browns, right? I put them in the skillet, skillet fry them. I take garlic, like minced garlic, and get them frozen. You let them defrost, and then you cook them to their golden brown, and then you throw eggs on them, and there you have it. Your proteins, your good starches, and they taste awesome. So
Sounds good.
yeah. You know how to cook?
Um, well, I just I like to. I don't really cook that often,
What?
but
Why?
well, I used to cook. Then I got married.
That still didn't explain anything. Why don't you still cook?
Well, I have a wife now. She handles those duties primarily.
Oh, so she can cook better than you because she just has skill, or it's her place to cook for you? Which one is it?
I don't know if she. Yeah, of course she's a great cook, excellent cook. I wouldn't have married her if she didn't know how to bake a biscuit.
Anybody
So,
can actually bake a biscuit is simple instructions.
you would think so. So, what's going on? Where did you want to leave off? Where we left off, or did you want to talk about something else?
Oh, I'm actually just having a conversation with you, my friend. I did
Okay,
want to actually address a couple things. Like this is one of
sure.
the things that I really want to address. So help me out with this, right? I I'm not a Christian. I'm actually more agnostic than anything. But my one of the quintessential questions that I had to really ask myself is if I determine that there is no God, what in what way would that change my life? In what way, if there is no higher power, that we only live for this one life that we have, in what way and what things would I do differently? I realize if there is no God, then my life is pretty much unchanged for the most part. I have to make specific and purposeful choices to just treat people better and care about human suffering. That's what led me down my path of non belief, if you will. So I'm going to ask you the same question. If there was no God, if you found out this was the only life you had to live, how would that change your life?
Well, for one, I would never convert to atheism or agnosticism. In that, uh, if God is not responsible or the first uncaused cause, like they like to say, then an alien or something would be. So I
But
certainly would not become an atheist or agnostic. Maybe agnostic in a sense is I don't know who that alien is. Um, but the idea that life began from non-life without a cause, and then that non-life developed morals um, by chance, and through undirected processes and over billions of years, millions of years. That would be the last thing I would believe in
so,
if there
question,
were no God.
question. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm still getting this Google Hangout shit together. So, isn't that just again deferring to a higher power?
Well, I think it's deferring to what is, based on the facts, what is more or most plausible, the least rational solution to the origin question. I think is evolution,
So,
that we evolve,
wait.
or
I,
what we call abiogenesis, rather.
I think you're actually used Haplin's razor a little bit incorrectly. The actual determination is what takes the least amount of explanation is generally the rightest answer. So, from
Mm.
what you're explaining is specifically it has to be some being, specifically a higher power, something that directs everything, or at least directed life to the conclusion that it has been, where that other life came from, and the question is begged that what directed them, versus saying that chemicals react in a certain way, and through those chemicals, more complex chemicals were determined, and from there, molecules were able to self replicate to what we would call life now through processes that we see now. So
Well, I
there's
think the
evidence
problem,
for what we see now based on the hypothesis, not the theory, but the hypothesis that we believe that transpired to create the early RNA molecules. And I'm sorry, I'm a
well, I'm
layman,
glad
so
you,
I'm just coming up with the information based on, you know, just the pop science data we get.
but yeah, I'm glad you've demoted the theory, quote unquote, of evolution to a hypothesis. I also do
No,
the
I
same.
didn't. No, I
Um,
didn't. I said that there are hypotheses on the start of life. Evolution is not about the start of life. It's about
okay,
what
so you're
happened
talking
with
about
life after it began. Evolution is
okay,
a change in allele frequencies over time in a given population. That's what evolution is.
right,
And
right,
it was
right,
not consciously guided, but it was guided through natural selection and sexual and asexual reproduction.
right. So what you have then without God is an infinite progression of finite causes. So you mentioned the alien. Well, who invented or who created the alien,
No, you
and then
mentioned
who
the
created
alien.
the alien? Right. So you mentioned that the alien. Uh, my conclusion would be that something had to be responsible for life on this planet. The idea that life began from processes that are undirected and just random, unguided, undirected, random processes. I think the odds that this would happen are astronomical. I would lean towards the idea that something, whether it be an alien or some sort of alien life form, alien as being defined as not from this universe or not from this planet, was responsible for starting life on the planet
So
rather than
more of a
um,
deistic God.
well, no, not necessarily a deist God. If the God of the Bible doesn't exist, then God doesn't exist. So then I would lean towards I think a better solution, um, better natural explanation would be um, the what they call panspermia. That something, another life form, a more advanced life form, is responsible for planting the first genome or the first um, life on this earth, which they say evolved into a human eventually.
But Jill, don't you see where did that life come from to permeate to Earth?
Right. This is why I believe in God, because other than that, other than God, you have a dead end, a logical dead end, a bunch of an infinite, not a bunch, but an infinite progression of finite aliens that
So
that they're not eternal. So where did they come from? So that's the problem. Um, you have, not I. I believe in God is the first uncaused
aren't
cause of
aren't you
everything.
just special pleading?
I don't know what special pleading would mean if that
Okay.
is
So
what
here, let me
was
explain.
pled.
So let me
Well, no, I know
explain.
what you mean. I know what you mean by special pleading, but I think the Bible um, is pleading for us. So we're not doing any special pleading. This is what the scriptures teach. In the
But do you,
beginning was the Word, and the Word was God.
hey, 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 hey,
In the
hey,
beginning, God created.
hey. So when you said you teach math and statistics, correct? Right? That means you know basic algebra, right?
Yeah,
Okay, great. So
algebra was my favorite subject.
you know how to equal out a problem, right? What you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the next, right?
Yeah.
So let's use your formulas, your affecting of one side of the problem. If you say that your God is the most maximum and powerful being, and because we're complex, we have to have a maximum and more powerful being to create us. Doesn't that also follow that he has to have that same rule?
No, because the scriptures reveal the nature of God, his eternal nature.
So that's
He has
still
no beginning and no
special
end.
pleading because for
Pleading
the
that has
same.
been done thousands of years before you or I were born. So this isn't made up in order to plead for the God of the Bible. This was already written before we even um, had a chance to plead. So it's not special. Special pleading is when you have a situation um, whereby you are making an exception for the rule. You yourself are making that exception to the rule for your favorite baseball team, for example. Uh, not It's you making that special pleading, not the actual authors of the Major League Baseball made that plead.
So you don't think that the Bible is a case of something of someone or someone's in multiple cases writing down their special pleading, however be it how old or her far back in iniquity that it goes, antiquity, excuse me, that it goes. But again,
Well, yeah,
by your same criticism, it still follows the same exact thing, the same exact piece of information that I provided you. Did it
okay,
not?
all right. Special pleading would require everyone to have made the same claim as the God of the Bible. Every God does not claim to be eternally existent. So it's not special pleading to suggest that the God of the Bible is an eternal being when that is what the scriptures teach. You don't find that in other. Now, if every religion said that their God was eternal, then you and then I then appeal to my God as being a special type of eternal. Then that would be the definition of special pleading.
Have you studied all the rest of the other religions?
Yeah, most of them. I
Okay,
mean, they're
so
inventing religions as we speak. They're inventing new religions, so it's probably impossible to have researched them all, but most of them, yeah.
okay, so I I feel that again. Do you know what special pleading is?
Yeah, I just told you it's an argument in which certain aspects of, if we want to use this example, aspects of God like eternally existing are ignored. Like for example, let's say the Zeus was said to, even though he's not, to have been eternally existing.
But
No
Zeus was never
creation.
one to actually say that he
Yeah,
was
I'm
the
using
first god.
this. Yeah,
Specifically, it
I'm
was
using
Nyx
this.
and her husband. I
Yeah,
forget, but it was darkness and night that were said to be the primordial
yeah.
beings.
I think you were ready to give your response before I had a chance to finish. I'm using this as an example, hypothetical. I know the story of Zeus. I've studied it quite well. He's not eternal. The story does not claim that he is an eternal being. But let's say that it did.
But
Okay.
wait, stop. Wait. Don't use. If you were to make this argument for the goddess of night, Nyx, then that would be a different story. You're trying to compare apples and oranges here. For
Okay.
they say,
No. I'm saying that let's say that the story does say, like your goddess, that this God is eternal. It would be special pleading for me then to say that my God is special. Okay, and I'm ignoring the aspect of eternal, or the internal aspect of Zeus. and I'm specially pleading for my God's eternal existence. So both of them have the same characteristic, but I'm making a special plead for my God, or special treatment towards my God's eternal existence. Do you know of any gods that claim to be eternal?
I gave you an example that you
Yeah,
keep
well,
ignoring.
give me. Yeah, no, I didn't ignore it. I'm not familiar with the story. You said the goddess who?
The Greek goddess of night, Nyx. She is claimed
And
to be eternal, and
spell
and
that for me.
Nyx, N
And I
I X. Or you may actually also can look her up in her the Roman incarnation of what she was claimed to be. Nos,
Okay. Nyx was
Nox.
a goddess of night, one of the primordial gods who emerged as the dawn of creation. She was a child of chaos. So
Mm,
she's not eternal. She's a child of chaos. She had a point of existence in time.
you're
So she's
right.
a
I forgot Chaos was specifically, and I forget his name, but he was said to be the first god and the god which all would return to.
uh
And
um
hold on. I'm sorry. Praise. Atheists believe in philosophy. Philosophy is just the study of how the world works based on ideas. But go ahead.
yeah. So you can nix that one. Uh, pun intended. Is there?
Points on the board. Yay!
Is,
Oh, isn't that fun with that pride?
so give me another one.
This isn't about you coming on and actually me giving you points to debunk. That's specifically, if we want to do that, we can say that your God is a contradiction in of himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to know how. I mean, if God is a contradiction, then
You can't
he
be
doesn't
all
exist.
merciful and all just at the same time.
You can't be all merciful and all just.
Yes.
Well, it depends on how you're defining all merciful. All merciful doesn't mean that I'm showing mercy or not showing mercy when Crimson says that I should. But instead, God says He will show mercy to whom He pleases. Um, so it really has nothing to do with anyone's opinions.
So, are the cases of right and wrong subjective or objective when it comes to God?
Um, Romans 9:15 says, "I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion." Basically, I'll do what I want to do.
Did you
So,
actually just ignore my question?
oh no, I was just expounding on just reading from Romans 9. I butchered the scripture. I don't like to butcher the scripture, so I just corrected myself there. Um, but you're claiming God to be contradictory because he says he's all all loving and all mercy, or I don't, what is your definition of those terms? I don't think they're biblical, but
You know what? What is your definition of all mercy?
I just gave you, I'll have mercy on whom I'll have mercy. So my definition of all merciful, or I don't know if that's a term that's used in scripture.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
It is.
You're the Christian. You should be able to tell me, man.
Well, you're making the claim that God is saying this is who He is.
No, I'm making a
Um,
claim that Christians are seeing this is who he is.
that Christians are saying what? He's all what?
All merciful and all
All merciful,
just.
all merciful, and all.
Just.
Yeah, He is perfectly just. Um, yeah, we can look that up in the about a merciful God. Um, does that what does that suggest to you? Because obviously the implication you're drawing from that term causes you to believe there's a contradiction. I don't see where a contradiction is. They're all to me, all powerful, all knowing simply means that you know everything or you're all powerful. There's no one that's more powerful than you. It doesn't mean that you have to use your power when the atheist commands you. Otherwise, they become God and you become their genie in the lamp.
However, I do want to ask this question. So you're right. There should be no higher power that we should become master over because we want a genie in a lamp. But
Yeah, I
is
wouldn't
it
serve a God
moral?
like that.
Is it moral for said deity to use us as effectively puppets?
You're a puppet.
From what you're describing, puppet.
I didn't describe any puppeteering, but
So what is a puppet?
a, a puppet is someone that does not think for itself. It can. It's fatalistically controlled by another agent. So I don't believe that's what's going on in Scripture. However, you have
So
the freedom to choose. Adam had the freedom to choose, and so do we.
do you know what the a term called entrapment is? Come
And
on. Come
yeah,
on,
I used to watch
you're conscious of the ills in the black community. Do you know what entrapment is?
uh, the ills of the black community. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with those ills, and they're mostly self-inflicted ills. But yeah, I watched a lot of Cops, and entrapment is where the police sometimes they'll set up a sting, prostitution sting, drug stings, and they'll actually offer you the drugs and then arrest you once you buy them. So you're still purchasing them. So it's not entirely an entraption,
No,
whereby you're just
no, no,
walking
no,
down the street
no,
and
no, no.
somebody opens up a trap door and you fall through it. That's not what's going on here in
That's not what
scripture.
entrapment is. Entrapment is.
What is it?
There is actually a fine line. It's where you you're right. Let's use that example of the police wants to bust somebody selling drugs, and instead of saying, "Hey, I have drugs, you want to buy it," like an undercover cop would, no, they put the drugs in your hand and take the money. Then they say you
Huh?
bought it.
That's not entrapment. That's
That's
illegal.
actually
Entrapment is not
thus
illegal.
entrapment isn't legal.
No, that's
Coercion is
putting
not.
drugs in your. That's planting drugs illegally. That's not. That's not entrapment. Entrapment is when you actually um, commit the crime. So you're still committing the crime of whether it be prostitution or drugs. You willingly commit the crime, although the scenario was set up by the task force, um, and they call that entrapment. But it is not illegal, and police officers do this to fight crime, to make our streets safer. So I don't have a problem with that. If you're trained and if you're a child that's raised by good parents, Christian parents, then you won't fall for that trap. You'll say no, thank you. I'll keep going about my way.
Okay, so what I want to ask, because this is what I want to actually always ask. Christians. The one thing that always actually concerns me is that why do you feel that you need to be important? to a deity?
Why do I feel I need to be important to God?
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I don't know if I feel that I need to be important. I think you there's an underlying assumption here that Christians feel as though we need to be important to God. Um, I don't know how to answer that question. I think it's a bit malformed.
No, I actually okay. So
I
why?
personally don't feel
Let me
that.
reform the question then. Great, 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 great. Out of the vastness of all of space time, the super galactic clusters, the local group, the galactic cluster, the galaxy, the solar system. Why is it that you, who live on a rock spinning around a very small and unnoticeable relative star, is important to the person that sits above all of that?
Well, um, also we want to take since we're bringing up the rotation of the Earth, we also want to mention the fact that that rock is spinning uh, on its axis. Uh, at a I think 24 degrees. It's some finite, precise spinning on its axis while rotating around the sun. Yet we stand upright on the planet. So
Hey,
pretty remarkable what
hey,
God did.
hey, 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 stop.
Yeah,
Stop. Because as you know, if you've taught math or statistics, you know what the concept of equilibrium is. You know what that concept is. The galaxy, the life, the universe is not fine tailored. It is formed a balance of equilibrium. Do not use that
yes,
argument.
perfectly. Yeah, and then and if we tilt one of the parameters, there would be no life um, possible on Earth. Twenty three
So,
point five degrees relative to our orbital plane, the Earth's orbit around the sun,
so
and the
again,
tilt of the
what is
Earth's
more
axis.
plausible and takes the least amount of exceptions to the explanation? That
God,
things generally settled to a place where they would support life, and life evolved around the environment it was, so much so that it started to change the environment, and the environment changed this in a symbiotic relationship, or because God did it. No explanation
God did it.
needed. No
Yeah,
explanation needed.
I think the problem is the origin for you. You don't have an answer for origin. You could speculate through evolutionary assumptions what may have happened after the first life form, but those are just assumptions. We have our. You may think you have evidence for that assumption, but we certainly have evidence for what we believe. But I wanted to answer your question about um, why we believe we're important. I was just thinking, um, not that I personally go around with a chip on my shoulder. I'm a Christian, but I think it is important to note that out of the 8 billion or so species that has ever lived, we're the only species to have quote unquote evolved to this level of intelligence. I don't think that was a coincidence. You might believe it's a coincidence. You have no choice. But as born again believers who obviously believe in the supernatural, we don't take that as a coincidence, coinky dink,
No,
just
it's
random.
always so. If you have a sample size of something, and the sample size is, if you're looking for the probability of something, and you have a sample size of one, what's the probability of that happening?
I think the sample size was 8 billion. Out of the 8 billion species, not one, only one evolved, quote unquote,
Jill,
to the point where we
Jill,
have conversations on the internet
Jill.
about the Earth spinning. Yeah,
So if you
don't see
have,
apes doing this.
we are apes.
Oh God, of course.
You, but question.
Yeah.
So let's try to determine your level of expertise because remember you're an expert. If you
And what?
have, you said you teach
Math.
and
I'm an
statistics,
expert in
right?
math. Yeah.
Okay, so if you have, if you're looking for the probability of having something happen, and you see one example, your size of your provable point is one. What is the
I,
probability
I'm not sure what is the one you're referring to.
that
One out
life
of what?
exists?
There are more. There's more than one form of life on this planet. I don't understand your question here. So probability is can be represented by fraction.
Uh huh.
Um, so
So
it's one human out of what? A one life form out of what? I don't know. I'm not sure what the.
so
Um,
I really believe that you don't teach statistics with that simple question.
no, it's not a simple question because you haven't told me what the part and the whole are. Probability deals with part over whole. We learned that in the fifth grade. So you're
So
saying one out of what? What is
that
the whole
there
that you're?
is where what examples that we have? Do we have any examples that life has evolved?
I'm confused as to what
I
it
know
is
you're
that you're.
confused. That's
Life
something
has
that you,
evolved. We have
that
one
life
example,
has
right?
occurred.
We have one example out of the 8 billion where life has evolved to the point where we can have a discussion on the internet about the angle of the tilted Earth. So that's one out of 8 billion. So to suggest that is that
You're switching.
probability, I
Hey,
could look it
hey,
up
hey,
for
hey!
you. Get you the percentage.
Stop,
Yeah.
stop. Because what you're asking, what you're answering is a different question than what I'm asking, and you know it.
Okay. Okay. So what is the question you're asking? Because
I'm
I'm not sure.
asking out of all of the sample sizes, or excuse me, out of all the occurrences of life happening, how is it? How likely is a probability out of all of the occurrences of life happening? What's the probability of it?
Again, I'm not following what you're asking.
Then
Out of
you are
all
not
of
a
the,
statist.
are
You're not
you?
a statistician.
This has nothing to do with statistics. You can make a statistic out of anything, sports, cosmology. So what you're asking me is, what are the chances that out of all of the universe, or out of all of the planets and stars,
No,
what's
I'm
the
asking
chance
out
that
of the
life would
chance of
rise?
life arising. How much of a chance do we have that life arises based on our sample size?
You you're giving me, but life is human life is not the only life to have risen, to
Wow,
have
did I
arisen.
say human life?
Did you what?
Did I say human life?
Well, you said life. There are different types of life.
Oh, so when I'm asking life in general, what is
Uh-huh.
this based on our sample size? Is the probability of life evolving?
Again, uh, what is the probability of life evolving
Yes,
from what?
Jill.
From what? From where?
Hey,
Where is your
hey, hey,
starting
hey,
point?
hey, 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 hey. Did I mention starting point?
You have to start somewhere. Evolving from what? From creatures that actually walk on land, or
Oh,
evolving
so
from
evolution
fish?
isn't about the start of life. It's about what happens after life starts.
Okay. So you're talking about
So never
evolution.
use that argument again that evolution is about the start of life because you just
Never use
admitted it.
that argument. That's a straw man. I never use that argument.
So
I
you didn't
understand the
say
difference. I
early.
used to teach
You didn't
science.
say early in our conversation that evolution doesn't tell you where the start of life comes from.
Evolution does not tell you the start of life. In the textbooks, they even separate the two. There's abiogenesis, and then there's evolution, which tells you
Have fun with that.
um, after the life forms have existed, how they evolved into the different creatures that we see today. But I'm trying to get back to your question here about probability. I'm not sure as to what the part and the whole is
So
that you want me to
I'm
figure
asking.
out.
Listen to the question.
Okay.
Out of the sample size,
What is the
uh,
sample size? How big is it? And what is the size, the sample size? Because that's
how
going to
many?
be our
How
whole.
how specifically? How many examples of life do we have? Of
Um,
just a singular concept of life. How many how many examples of life? Not particular types of life, but how many examples of life do we have?
about 8.7 million. Humans share the planet with as many as about
Okay.
8.7 million forms of life.
Great. So I need to be a little bit more specific. How many examples of planets that support life do we have?
Zero.
Zero.
Just a coincidence? I don't think so.
Zero. We have
I
no
think
examples of a planet supporting life.
no. You're arguing for the Christian faith. So we are a privileged planet as well as a privileged species. There's actually a documentary on this called "Privileged Planet," whereby all of those things and those statistics that you're looking for are stated, and it turns out that
Jill,
we don't believe it's just
stop
a
bullshitting
coincidence.
me because you know the probability of life based on our examples is 100%. You
One
know
out
that.
of what? What
One
are
out of
your?
one.
What is your part and what is your whole?
How many
Probability
examples of
deals
planets do we have that support life? How many planets do
one,
we know of? Ah,
one out of how many planets though? So
that's not the
what you're doing
question.
is you're taking the planet Earth as if it's the only planet in the solar system or the universe. It's
Do
not.
we know that there's life anywhere else but
No.
here?
Out of all the planets that we've researched or looked at, let's see how many planets have we discovered, and then we find out that they cannot sustain any life. Several
As we know.
hundred thousands, perhaps.
So we're getting off into the weeds. Let's just have this conversation here. My question to you is this: why is it so important, again, that people believe in a God? You gave me some nebulous answers about yourself. Why is it so important that people have the concept of a God?
Well, I think Scripture teaches that because God is the creator of everything, He therefore is puts Himself in a position whereby He would know what would be best for that creation. So it's just like a parent knowing what's best for their child. So it is in our best interest to follow um, what our parent instructs us to do, since mom and dad know best. Mom and dad created you. They created the environment that you're in. They know how best, uh, how which behaviors are more or beneficial, which ones are damaging or harmful, which foods you can eat, which foods you shouldn't eat, etc., etc. The Bible gives
So
us all of those prescriptions.
so let me ask this question:
Yeah.
can God do something that's immoral?
I don't know if humans are in a position to make that judgment. You could
By
try to
His
judge out of
standard, can God do something that's immoral?
His ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. There is no gauging his standard because his actions are transcendent. Meaning, when he acts, he's not just acting. Um, he's not just pulling a gun out and shooting someone because they entered into his home. So he's not reacting.
Hmm.
When our actions are solely based off of
Wait. I'm
reaction.
sorry. I apologize. I just apologize for interrupting you on this.
Mm.
So there has never been any instances where God reacted versus just
No, no. It may read that way in the text because that's just the way the biblical writers communicated. Um, but God is not up in heaven saying, "Oh boy, what am I going to do about this Judas character?" No, this was all already part of his decree, his eternal decree. Before the foundations of the world, before the world was even created, these things had already been accomplished in the mind of an eternal being. So it's really difficult, probably impossible, for us as finite beings to put ourselves in that realm and understand that God's choices are not always do not always seem like they're right to us.
so. Now, maybe this is oversimplification, but it sounds as if you're saying that you're using an argument for God that might makes right.
I was saying thing about might. It's not because he's all powerful that he's right. It's because he's eternal. So an eternal being is not making a decision in a linear time scale like we do. We make decisions based off of our past experience and our present. God makes decisions based off of, because he's transcended, the unlimited or the eternal past and the eternal future.
Hey,
So
hey,
he's not making a decision
hey,
because of
hey. That's
yeah.
that's great that you're saying that. But have you ever watched Dragon Ball Z? Do you know what power levels are? Do you know what power levels
No,
are?
I didn't.
Okay,
I never got into the Dragon
okay.
Ball
But it's a
series.
thing about power levels. Like you're still describing somebody that has a higher power level. And again, it's because I have this higher power, whatever I do is right. Is again, please disabuse me of this fact that you're just saying that God can do it because he's God and fuck you, oh well.
Well, pretty much that's what God says in the book of Isaiah. But I would say, or to Job rather. But I would say from a Christian perspective, from a human perspective, we're not in any position to judge. For example, let me give you a little uh, bit of an analogy or an example. You give, you think you're doing a good thing because you're an atheist or agnostic, and you believe in feeding the homeless, don't you? Is that a good thing to feed the homeless?
Yes, it is a good
Okay,
thing.
so you go out and you start feeding the homeless because you were told, by um, atheism or atheist or government that it's a good thing to help feed the homeless.
No, see,
Um,
that's where you're incorrect because
who
I would
told you it
feed
was a
the
good thing?
homeless because I personally wouldn't want to suffer that way, not
Hmm.
because
So,
someone told me. I don't need a
okay,
director to be empathetic towards humans, but it seems
okay,
like you do.
all right. So you feed the homeless because you feel personally that this is a good thing. Okay, so you approach a homeless man and you give him a piece of chicken. He chokes on the chicken bone and dies. Did you do a good thing?
Yes.
You did it, but you just killed them.
No, I
So
didn't.
what I'm
I
saying
gave him
is,
no. I gave him food for him to eat.
okay,
That's what I
good,
did.
right, and he choked on the chicken bone that you gave him. So
Well,
what I'm
of course, a
saying
lot
is
of people should
that
choke on chickens, but that's a different story.
what I'm saying is that only God would know not to feed that homeless person, and you would suggest that God is a mean person for telling you not to feed that homeless person. We would suggest that God knows the beginning from the end, and thereby we trust that He's making the right decision for everyone in the end, considering that people have freedom of choice and all of those things, parameters that go along with it. Um, so that is why we would say you cannot judge the God of the Bible because we don't know what He's doing for the future. 10,000 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 100,000 years from now. God may want global warming. So stop throwing water on God's fires.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I understand one thing. One, that's a idiotic excuse if the God loves for us. Secondly, it sounds like you're playing Doctor Mario. What level are you at, dog?
Um, well, somebody,
I know Doctor Mario music.
Dr. Mario music. Yes, this he's yeah, that's my wife playing. She likes the Mario stuff.
Oh
We actually
wow,
bought the classic NES. Um,
wow.
yeah, so it's got about 30 games on it. I heard you can download more, but
No, it's a
a
lie.
yeah, a few
Unless
YouTubers would.
you void the warranty.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. If you do
okay,
that, you void the warranty because it can play ROMs because that's all the games are, just ROMs. It's a perception that they're more than that.
I see.
So,
Yeah, someone told me I saw somewhere on the internet where their whole NES blew up when they tried to do it. So I said I'll abstain from adding more games on.
so let me ask this. I understand that I, I gonna be very careful with my words. I understand that you have a spouse, and that's great. My question is, I see that it has been a lot of cases where you feel that you can't talk to women when they try to address some of the things that you say that may be incorrect. Is Am I wrong with seeing that?
Oh my goodness, incorrect.
Oh, so
A woman addressing something I said was incorrect. That's a violation already. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I I think I discussed this on one of my hangouts, one of my videos I did. I just don't feel it's appropriate to have conversations with a married man. That is, and that's what we believe. To have conversations with the opposite sex, unless it's necessary. My wife feels the same way.
why is that?
That's just how what we believe.
Don't
No
have
rhyme or reason.
is it that they're gonna verbally have intercourse with you verbally, and that would cause something going on in your mind or body that would be unduly actions or just improper actions? Excuse me.
No, you could assert such is the case, but it's sort of like the Mike Pence rule on steroids. You know who Mike Pence is, don't you?
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
actually has more homoerotic connotations than anything, especially
But,
with his quote unquote rules.
yeah, his Pence rules are sort of like the same thing. He won't, out of respect for his wife, he won't do the dinner dates one on one with a woman other than his wife. So that may be more of a Christian thing than it is an atheist thing. I understand that, but that's
It
just how
slaps
we.
in the face of what specifically the Bible talks about, because the Bible actually talks about men having more than one wife. Every
Oh,
patriarch,
really? Where does it say that?
every patriarch in
Okay,
the Judeo-Christian religion had multiple wives.
okay. Did were they disobeying God or were they obeying God?
No, there were actually rules for being able to have multiple wives.
Really?
Yeah,
What are those rules that say thou shalt have more than one? Thou shalt have more than one wife. Is that
where
what
are
the
the
rule
rules that
is?
say you should only have one wife?
Deuteronomy 17:17.
Go ahead and read it for me.
Thou shalt not multiply wives.
Go
I
ahead
got
and read the verse for me, please.
okay. Let me. You want me to screen share it?
Yeah.
Oh no, you're playing the game there, so
Oh
I
no,
don't
no,
want to.
no. I can actually put it up where we can actually screen share it. Hold on one moment, man.
All right, Deuteronomy 17:17. Thou shalt not multiply wives. Deuteronomy, we know,
Screen share it.
um, is the law. So Um, so here's Deuteronomy 17, and let me screen share that for you. All right, there we go.
Wait a
Neither shall
minute.
he multiply wives to himself. Mhm.
Wait.
J,
Stop.
KJV.
No. Please do me a favor. That sounds almost as if it was part of another conversation. Can we read the whole the whole set of verses in context?
Chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get to
Let's start
Deuteronomy
Deuteronomy
17.
17:1.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Let's do that. Now, this is the context here is referring to the kings. So, if such was the case for the king, how much more so for the subjects?
Wait a minute. Wait a
Thou
minute.
shalt not sacrifice.
Wait, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you mentioned the king. Yeah,
Wait. I'm sorry. So God didn't like the kings having more than one wife,
he commands them not to have more than one wife, right?
and the text in Deuteronomy was written before like Saul, David, um, Solomon. All of this was happening before them, right?
Perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps yes or
Yeah.
no, man. I thought
Moses,
Moses gave
yeah.
this law, and if it was the law given by Moses, it would have happened before, you know, David came to be.
Right, David, Solomon, all of them disobey God, especially Solomon because he allowed the. Now God that did allow them to take multiple wives. He didn't, kill them, um, but he commands them not to do it. And we see what happened to Solomon as a result of him disobeying God. He died an old lonely man. I have wealth, I have silver, I have gold, but I have no one to share it with, he says in Ecclesiastics, um, which is his second book. He wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastics and Song of Solomon, of course.
Oh, I love the Song of
Um,
Solomon. What was the Song of
mhm.
Solomon about?
Well, all of the Bible is about Jesus, we
Really
believe.
now?
Yeah.
What was the Song of Solomon
Um,
about though, for real?
Jesus.
It was.
But some would suggest uh, it was about Jesus, but Jesus doesn't have sex with his church, so.
Oh,
Um,
it's almost as if it. So Jesus is a she because I remember there are passages saying that you drink sweet nectar from her navel, and they weren't talking about what was on her stomach.
Yeah. The Bible
The Bible
does
got
talk
porn in
about
it.
sex. Yeah, the Bible does talk about
The
sex,
Bible got
but
porn
that's
in
for
it.
married couples. That's for married couples only, not for singles.
So
Yeah,
polyamory. Well, I guess you could say polyamory is condoned in the Bible, isn't it?
it's allowed, but it's forbidden in Scripture. So just like murder is, God doesn't kill you when you murder someone else. When you commit adultery, He doesn't always kill you. But those things are forbidden in Scripture. So when the Bible is describing people doing it, it doesn't mean that God, is for it. The Bible teaches that there are prescriptions, and then there are passages in the Bible that describe people's behaviors. Obviously, David's sin is called a sin because it's just that, where he slept with Bathsheba and killed Uriah had Uriah killed on the battlefield. Bathsheba's wife in order to cover up
Husband, say
his
husband,
behavior.
say husband.
Right.
So, but it would come to think that David would be punished forever. By the way, what was the name of the second child born between David and Bathsheba?
The second child was Solomon.
Wow!
Yeah.
So it's almost as if God still blessed him, even though he took somebody else's wife, right?
Well, again, remember, God is dealing with the people just like today. Uh, God describes the Israelites as a whore. because they keep whoring after other nations, yet God always is there to accept them back.
I'm
He
sorry to
uses
interrupt you, Matt.
actually,
Hold on. Is
yeah.
my Can you hear my AC? I had to turn that on. I'm getting hot. I don't want to be like drag and
Uh,
take off a shirt because I got more fat
oh
rolls.
no, no, we don't want to see
Okay.
that. But God describes the Israelites as he actually uses a prophet to describe. If you're familiar with the prophet Hosea, God
Is
instructed Hosea to marry a prostitute in order to give a object lesson as to how he feels, quote unquote, feels um, with the dealing with the children, his children, who are
Wait, ooh,
constantly disobeying him.
I gotta remember. Is this the one where he's talking about how you lust at the man that's hung like horses and the emissions are like those of donkeys?
No, I think that that's in Hosea, I believe, but
Oh man.
yeah, yeah. So God is basically comparing his children to that type of woman. Yet he still loves us enough to die for us and sacrifice himself on the cross, even though we're like that whorish woman who just cannot stay faithful. So that would be said of the patriarchs as well. They're not perfect. The only perfect person to ever walk this earth was Jesus Christ, because he's God incarnate, the God man.
Yes, my friend. This has been an interesting conversation. And quite frankly, I think that your obfuscation skills have gotten better. I think that, you've actually tried to do a lot better with apologetics from the first hangouts that I used to actually see. But this whole this whole conversation, it's I know what arrogance is because I'm an arrogant motherfucker. But do you see yourself as having any arrogance at all?
No, I don't believe I'm arrogant. Um, I just believe the truth. I have the truth, and it's more of a confidence than anything than an arrogance. Christians are not allowed to be arrogant because they rely on the uh, reliable one. That's Jesus Christ, who says we can do nothing without him.
Hmm.
Where do you get your confidence from?
That we each have value and no one has more value than the next.
But you have more value than the next. Do
Says
you
who?
believe? Do you believe you have more value than a homeless person?
No.
Do you believe you have more value? Do you believe President Obama has more value than President Trump? Or
No.
what about President Obama and a homeless person? When
No.
Obama was the president?
No. He may have more
Okay.
responsibilities, but
Yeah.
what's the value of a human life since you want to quantify it?
Well, we're all made in the image of God, so thereby we are all valuable. Um, but that what you just expressed is what we call the Imago Dei, and the reason why humans are a special creation and could not have been involved in the evolutionary process is because we feel that way about other humans
Oh, I'm
intrinsically.
sorry, you misunderstood. You think that I'm just saying that human life is the only thing that has value.
More
That's not the
value than a
case.
chicken, yes. More value than a chicken,
Again,
yes. Would you suggest that a human life is more valuable than a chicken?
see, that's a false dichotomy, dog. I'm saying that each life has its value. I
Yes,
thought
each human
Christians,
life is equally valid. We
I,
we agree.
I
We agreed
thought
on that,
Christians
right?
actually believe that we are all God's children, not just the
No, that's not exactly true. We're all created by God, but we're not all His children. Some
okay,
some
created
people
by
are.
God. We're all created by God. That
Yeah.
includes the animals were created by God as well, right?
No. Yeah, the animals were created by God, but they were not created in the image of God.
So what's the image of God? Does God have two eyes, a nose, and a mouth?
Well, let me ask you this. I'll answer that, but let me ask you what I was alluding to, or where you were seem to be going, but I don't think you want to go there. I asked you whether or not humans were more valuable than a chicken, and you didn't answer.
Pound for pound? No.
What? Pound for pound? I'm not talking about whether or not we could beat a chicken in a fight,
Yeah, it was a
a
joke.
boxing match.
Funny.
Uh, so
I am
are
saying that all life is precious.
are humans more precious than chickens?
No.
They're not.
No.
So why are we allowed to kill chickens with impunity, but not humans?
Just because you take a life of a chicken doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve respect. Don't you get that there are ethical ways of treating our food that we eat?
After you kill it, yeah. Or you mean before
It's
you kill it?
still a creature. It's still
Okay, so
something that is
before you
alive.
kill it, when do you show this that it has value? Before you kill it or after? Before you fry it or after you've
Hey, it sounds like you're trying to conflate worship and or reverence to a specific animal versus just having a decent respect that these are living creatures and
they are.
we should not go out of our way to be unduly cruel to these creatures.
After, so we right, we should find ways to kill them quietly without, them feeling any pain, but we're still killing the chicken. So
Yeah, you may actually
obviously,
choke it too.
yeah, so obviously we don't hold the same uh the chicken does not have the same intrinsic value as humans. We know this. We practice this, and this is a reality basically. So that's what the Bible teaches. So you've demonstrated that we are made in the imago Dei, and there is a difference between us and other species. We are a special creation. But to answer the question, oh geez, I forgot what the question was. Maybe you can refresh my memory.
No, remember it on your own because I'm going to be an asshole and say something that's going to really piss you off.
Okay, let me see if I can go back and see if I can find the question then. Because it was a good question. I did want to answer it. Um, Hold on one second.
You are not replaying the video back, are you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good question. I wanted to answer it. I'm surprised you don't remember. I should have wrote it down. That's what I should have did. But let me go back. Maybe you don't remember it either. Um, so let me go back and play and see if I can find it.
Um, yeah, okay. Oh, by the way, guys, for everyone else watching, I switched to Mega Man X. No, not Mega Man 10, but the Super Nintendo version of Mega Man.
Okay, I found it. All
Okay,
right.
what's the
So,
question?
what does it mean to be made in the image of God? Boy,
Oh
that's a
yeah,
good question. Um, and which Mega Man is this, by the way? Because I
Mega
have
Man
the.
X.
Oh, this is Mega Man X.
Yes, on the Super
And-
Nintendo Classic, you can
oh,
actually play
SES.
this.
All right, yeah, Super Nintendo. That's NES. Do
Yes.
they have that classic one still out, or we can purchase that one, or we have to get?
It's basically the same thing. They just changed the body, and yes, it's still available for you to purchase.
Is it the same price or is it more? Is it
It's
super?
$80 versus the 60.
Oh, okay.
I just bought
It's,
the Mega Man X collection on the PlayStation 4.
oh, you can play this on PS4 too.
Yeah, they
Cool.
broke it down to 1 through 4, and basically 4 through 8 on. It's in two collections, and you can actually buy this and the Mega Man collection for all of the games for Mega Man except for like the new 10 and 11. Oh, no, they still got 10 and 11 in the part. They got 10 in the collection. So I'm playing Mega Man X. I have the Mega Man collection itself. Shit, I'm about to die. But I like X better.
All right, cool. Well, I actually Mega Man for the NES is probably the hardest game. Now, I didn't play when I was a kid, so when I got this, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna play this game because I was never really into games like that when I was a kid. And I tried to play Mega Man. It's like impossible to get past these boards. It's like, but anyway, the image of God. We were made. What does it mean to be made in the image of God? Now, the reason why we struggle with this passage, or many even Christians struggle with this, is because we're not reading the Bible holistically. We're not reading the Bible synergistically, or reading all of Scripture, which explains what these terms actually mean. They don't mean that you can look in the mirror and see how God looks. So God is not 6 foot two, 230 pounds with a chiseled, cut chin. But instead, the Bible goes on to explain that we're made in His image because we have what's called the communicable attributes of God. Communicable simply meaning that that He shares these attributes with us, and they are possessed by people: justice, knowledge, love, rationality, mercy, speech, um,
Wait,
truthfulness. All
whoa,
of
whoa,
these
whoa, whoa.
things.
Wait. There are animals that exhibit justice, mercy, and communication.
Yeah, I know. It's called it's called the survival of the fittest justice. So when a lion
Wait,
is eating an animal,
no,
when a lion
no,
is
no,
eating
no,
a
no, no. Stop,
okay,
because that's not true. For
the
example,
animals
all
don't
right.
live for survival of the fittest. What are you watching the Nature Channel often, or what?
First of all, that's a misnomer about fittest. But we know that elephants actually have a highly empathetic and communicative community that they have. They can
Yes,
actually recognize themselves in a mirror, and they can also mourn the loss of different members of their communities. We
yes.
know
Most
those.
animals know when their young have died. They know, sometimes they might even bury their. But anyway,
We
that
also
is
know those
not.
evil as fuck dolphins in the sea are just as cruel as humans,
Oh
and they're
yeah,
almost they don't have the physical communication skills that we have because
no.
again we evolve differently, but
Hmm.
they run in packs.
The
Just
only one to evolve, quote unquote, differently out of 8.7 million. I just wanted to bring that up again. You think that's a coincidence? We say otherwise, but
you said eight point
um,
seven million, right?
yeah,
Where do you get
8.7.
that number that that's how many species that there are?
Not probably not existent now, but have existed in the past. So some might be extinct, but that's what it's estimated
Hey, you
to have
can't
been.
use that number and not acknowledge evolution.
Um, I don't know why I have to acknowledge evolution to suggest
Because
that.
specifically, a lot of the cases for extinction were because the evolutionary line died. For example,
Evolutionary line died for what reason? Because of evolution.
99% of 99% of this 99% of the species on Earth, this is either 90 or 99. I forget which one.
Mhm.
Have died because one, catastrophic and quick climate change,
Mhm.
disease. You can't use that argument and
So what
still
does that
say
have to
you
do with
don't.
evolution? But you can have all of those things and not have species evolving, or a whale, or excuse me, or a animal like a hippo evolving into a 300,000 pound whale with a blowhole and sonar. So you can have all those things without that great leap, of what I believe is an evolutionary assumption, a huge one. But back to the attributes of God. You mentioned the animals show this. I want probably on a much lower scale if you want to make that stretch. But I want to ask you, when the lion is eating the buck alive, okay, is he? Do you believe is he thinking this is wrong in his mind when he's eating the buck alive, the deer, eating the
That
deer alive? Do you believe in his mind he's thinking, you know what, this might not look too good on my resume?
that is that is just comparatively nowhere near associated to the sense of morality, because if by that case humans wouldn't be moral for eating animals at all, even Christians.
Well, eating an animal alive, we might be considered that might be considered an immoral act, even from Christians. But do you think that the lion is having any thoughts, second thoughts there about, maybe I should cook this, or maybe I should make sure he's dead before I start eating? Do you think he's making that moral judgment at all?
Is it conditioned in his morals to have that?
No, it's not, and that's how God made him.
Oh
Yeah, so
wow.
that's how God
Oh
made. Now
wow.
God
It's
made us
almost as
different.
if you have a species that relies on using tools, that they become dependent on the tools, and some of the things that they would have had naturally to fend against not having tools would have atrophied away and become vestigial.
Um,
You
so
know,
so
like
is the lion thinking on about morality when he's eating this animal alive?
the lion can eat the animal alive, and I guarantee you, if the human being still had the palate to be able to eat animals alive, they still would.
Still have the palate. So you're saying we no longer have a taste for animals
No,
eating
they
it?
eating them alive. No, we don't. It's distasteful to us.
When
Figuratively,
did
of
that
course, but
when
it's
did that when
distasteful.
did that occur? When did that happen? When did we evolve not to acquire a taste for animals, uh, live animals,
We socially evolved to not
socially?
have our taste for eating live animals.
When did this happen?
The same time that God came into existence. You tell me.
So it didn't happen. It's always been. It,
You're
it's
absolutely
always
right.
right.
Exactly.
It's always been because
Uh
God
huh.
has always been. So,
Uh huh. Yeah.
so we've
Nice
never had
recovery
a
there.
taste.
Nice
You,
recovery there, my
can you
friend.
find anywhere in our evolutionary history where humans are eating animals that are alive while they're alive?
No, I
We
can't.
would consider someone who did that to there would be some type of psychological deficiency. That's not a normal behavior for a human, but it is normal behavior for an animal. So that's just one of the differences um, that we notice, um, which leads us to part of the reason why you know um, we conclude that this is an act of God, not just random, uh, process, something that happened by chance or natural selection.
All right. So here's the thing. It's coming up on the conversation for about an hour and a half. I fear that I may be taking you away from that valuable time that you would love to spend with your wife. On top of that, I am fucking tired and I want to actually just game without streaming for a while. So, any final words about anything? I can give you 2 minutes.
Well, yeah, I just want to say thanks for having me on a second time today, and I appreciate you giving me this platform, and uh, I think I would maybe go play some Mario. what's this thing called with the little pills and stuff? Dr. Mario. Yeah, Dr. Mario. I think I'll go play some Dr. Mario with the wife, and hopefully we can do this again. Maybe you can come on my channel and have a discussion like this, or I can come on here again. So whatever.
Actually, can you put the link to your channel in the side chat?
Yeah, yeah, I'll do that. And today, tomorrow, I'll be doing an acts a Christian type of thing. Open hangout. I can invite atheists in. There are some. I brought some people with me, as you can see. Praise is here. Um, this one guy was in here earlier. I don't know where he's at. And then Jeff Pasick, he's an atheist. He's um, also a YouTuber, I guess. I thought his brother would be here, Jay Pasick, but they're actually, I think they're twins.
Wow.
So yeah, so tomorrow I'll be doing probably sometime in the morning around 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'll be doing ask me any question, ask Jill a question, or ask a Christian. The Bible teaches that we are to be ready to always give an answer for the hope that we have um, in Jesus Christ. Um,
Hey,
so
hey,
that's what I do.
I,
Yeah.
I do got a question. Like, why don't you ever appear on camera?
Well, if you're familiar with the times, the Bible says, "Do not be ignorant of the times. Neither should we." Um, the Bible says, "Don't to be harmless, wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove." So we understand that currently the uh, the left, what I call the left, or liberalism or liberals, uh, do not take kind to Christian conservatives teaching children.
Oh, I'm glad that I'm not.
Uh,
I'm liberal. I'm a starting socialist.
yeah, and
Wait,
so
wait, 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 wait. Why, as you're a Christian, why wouldn't you want to be a socialist either?
well, the Bible is a support to socialism. The Bible
Really?
teaches responsible capitalism. Yeah,
But
yeah, the Bible's against
weren't
socialism.
the original believers in Acts communists? Not even socialists, but communists.
No,
So
no,
what
I
about the
think
story
I don't think.
where Peter was actually where they everybody sold all of their wealth and put together as a pool and actually helped supported people, and it was this one guy who kept a portion for himself. He was privy of it, and his wife was privy of it. And he came before Peter, and Peter said, "Did you sell everything?" And he said, "No." He's like, "You're dead." And then Peter asked his wife, and she knew it, and she was happy about it that he kept something. And she's like, "Well, no, he didn't keep anything." And he said, "The same hands that's gonna pull that took your husband out of here is gonna be the same hands that take you out of here." And she dropped dead. That's an example of socialism and punishment for not actually helping edify the group over oneself.
Yeah, well, I think you have another definition of socialism, communism. Communism and socialism. Socialism leads to communism historically. But socialism is not what was going on in the scriptures. These individuals were capitalists. They owned their own land. That would be an impossibility if this were a communist
That's
situation.
impossible because nobody, as a believer in the early parts of Acts, were Roman citizens. They were Jewish. The only
They still
person that
own their
wait
land.
stop. The only person that was in himself a Roman was Saul.
What does that have to do
And
with land ownership?
stop. In a monarchy, the king owned the land
Uh-huh.
unless you were rich enough to buy it from the king, and none of them were rich enough to buy it from the king.
Okay. So, um, They own their own land. The Bible teaches that they did own land.
In what scripture?
Uh, Moses owned land. Abraham owned land. Um, most of the patriarchs were rich. They weren't poor people. Uh, waiting for a handout from the government. So they actually owned their own land. Now, the Jews were an interesting group in that Rome pretty much let them uh, uh, pretty much police themselves. So the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Jewish authorities were basically in charge because they were a nation of religious people. Rome pretty much stayed uh, out of most of their laws and rules. So they respected the Jewish laws, and in Jewish law, you were allowed to own land. The difference between capitalism and communism is that the government owns everything, and any profit earned by the enterprise, whether it be your car dealership or your fishing business, not only did you pay taxes, but the profits are distributed among the people.
Okay,
That wasn't going on.
I'm sorry. We
That
got on a
wasn't
whole
going on in scripture.
another conversation. I actually would encourage you to actually, because I've already reviewed this video. I've done it. It's actually on my channel, but I would encourage your feedback on reviewing the video that I did versus the 3 types of socialism, and we can have that conversation. And so, I'm sorry, man. I have to get ready for work tomorrow, meaning that I have to decompress from my enjoyment of the weekend and put on the yoke of preparing for work. So, I want to
Okay.
wish you a good night, and
All right.
I want to thank everybody who's watched. Did you put your channel in the side chat?
I sure did. It's there. So,
Let me see.
yeah, but everyone here knows who, basically they can find my channel. Even though Jeff Pasick probably hasn't subscribed yet.
Well, I
That's
probably want to
okay.
put it for my viewers. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff, who's been on vacation, is that where Jay is? Is that why he hasn't done a live hangout in a while? I thought he was just running from me. Um, all right, yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me on, and good luck with your job situation. I saw your little ranch that you did the other day. I
Yeah.
said, boy, yeah, those call centers. I used to work in a call center a long time ago, and they could be a hassle. Um, so yeah, I'll be praying for you with that situation.
Oh, that's just like hoping it does nothing. Thank you, though. Hey, you
All
enjoy
right,
the rest of your
take care.
evening, man. Peace.
You too. Bye bye.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Um, get ready for work tomorrow. I will be streaming tomorrow about 8 o'clock, 8ish. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank Jill for coming on. And you can actually find his channel in the description when I update it. Have a good night and peace.